Welcome to Faith Fondue, a podcast featuring author and educator Haley DeMaria and teacher and blogger Ann Strickers. Faith Fondue features a melting pot of topics ignited by a flame, our faith, and guided by the Holy Spirit. It's the week of April 21st, the fourth Sunday of Easter. This is season 4, episode 8. Last week we took a week off for a minor holiday, or maybe a major one in Ann's life. We'll have to talk about that. So we skipped 1 week and we are catching up today. Ann, welcome. It's been 3 weeks since we last connected and we have a lot to talk about.
We do, and 3 weeks means we're into the Easter season. So the 50 days, and I'm like, we got to keep this rolling because it is 50 days of celebration and let's enjoy. So curious to hear how your Easter celebration has been going. But let's start.
All right, let's jump right in.
Hot.
The Masters last week. An A holiday, a B holiday, or just a holiday for golfers?
All of the above. Why not, right? And I do celebrate it. So one of my favorite parties of the year, my friends have a Masters party. It's wonderful. We gather for mass at their home and then afterwards watch it. And I am a little bit of an info hound. So an ideal situation for me is to watch a sporting event with people who really love the game and are knowledgeable. But it's just a really wonderful family, multi-generational, and it's such an easy event in the sense of like there's distinctive food, colors that you could wear, decor and whatnot. Couple years ago, I decided to be a caddy for Halloween. So the Masters have a uniform that the caddies have to wear, white kind of painter suit with a green hat. And so I bought one and I wore it to the party, which was really fun because it's so distinct looking. And I'm just personally interested in it because anywhere there's a uniform, whether it's a Catholic school, or, airline, or even among a caddy, individuals always find a way to express themselves. So it's like the T-shirt that you wear, the shoes, or the cover on your, scorekeeper, whatnot. So I wore a Notre Dame T-shirt underneath, of course. So
of course,
it was fun. I got a prize, and it was a great tournament. And another year.
So wait, you got a prize?
I did. I got a prize for the best costume.
Okay.
I didn't even know there was a costume contest. That's not my personality. I think you really enjoy dressing up, Haley.
Yes.
For some reason, it's not I don't know. I have no reason for it. But a friend had said, hey, are you going to wear that caddy outfit to the party? And I hesitated and he's like, you got to do it. And I thought he's right because I spent a lot of money on this caddy suit and it's very comfortable. So why not go for it?
Right. Especially if there's good food. That sounds like a good.
Yes. But, looking at what you are going to share, one of the reasons people love the Masters is because it's this unofficial move from winter to spring. It kind of signifies that for a lot of folks, for, people maybe Easter, but I think visually Augusta is so ready. It is spring there with the green and the pink of the azaleas. So even if it's not spring where you live, you have the ability to see that some places it's happening. So just hang tight and hopefully you'll get there.
Now, is it always the second week in April?
It is.
Because I feel like it falls on Easter sometimes, or at least around Easter. So that would make sense because Easter is often in April.
Yeah, correct. That's exactly right.
Okay.
And so those certain things don't change. One thing that did change this year was the prize amount, $3.6 million for the winner, which I have a hard time.
Is that up or down? Because you're talking to a golfing novice.
2.2, but I just can't imagine an individual winning that much money. Hey, the other, second, third, fifth, the prize is exceptional. I think Live Golf Tournament, the tour has put the pressure on other tournaments to raise the purse. But I mention it because the winner, Scotty Scheffler, his wife is pregnant, and there was this running narrative. If she goes into labor, it does not matter what hole he is on. It's their firstborn. He will leave the tournament to be with her. And on the 16th hole, it's clear he's gonna win. And I turned to my friend And I said, do you think he's really gonna like leave if he gets the call? And my parents said, not for 3.6 million. He's not.
Right,
So
right. I think his wife is not
never.
going to make the call. So I don't,
Yeah.
it's not that he wasn't going to answer it or go. I think he
Right.
might not have even gotten it.
Yeah, right. Conveniently. So some fun things that always happen with that minor, major, and sports holiday all in one.
All right. Well, at some point I may or may not get into it, but I know my kids are. My son was excited for it. He had a big countdown in his room for the
Cool.
Masters to start. So
Uh,
speaking of costumes, I was not going to bring this up just because I didn't think about it, but we did have our big fundraiser at our school where I work last night, and the theme was a night at the movies. So you could either come as though you were dressed to walk the red carpet, or you could come dressed as a movie character. So,
fun.
again, anytime, any chance to get into a costume, and we are all for that. So, two couples, my Jamie and myself and our good friends went as Pink Ladies and the T-Birds, which let me tell you, great costume. We wore Keds, jeans, white t-shirt and a jacket. And I didn't even have
So
to
fun.
barely brush my hair. I wrapped it up in a scarf. It was, yeah, speaking of comfortable things to wear, that was a great, great costume for the night. Additionally to that, we did go see, I don't know if you've seen the play Mamma Mia, but
I haven't.
we
No.
have a Broadway subscription here in Baltimore. We used to go to the Broadway series when we lived in Philadelphia, and then it just got really hard when the kids were younger to get downtown midweek, weekend, just anytime with kids. It's really hard to do anything like that. So when Edward went to college, we thought, you know what, let's start doing that again. We both love the theater. So this is our second year with our theater subscription, and Mamma Mia came to town. So I highly recommend it if you have not seen it. The play is different than the movie. The movie is certainly fun, but there is a scene. It's not even a scene. It's at the end after the curtain call, after they've bowed and whatever they do. The three kind of main female characters come out in these very elaborate, very distinct, kind of iconic ABBA costumes and sing, Dancing Queen and some other songs again. So
Fun.
I was sitting there thinking, oh, okay, so this is a good costume. Who can I get? So I'm now thinking ahead to Halloween. So big spoiler for anyone who
Oh.
actually listens
Uh-huh.
to our podcast. Usually what I am for Halloween is a big secret, but I think that might show up in October if I can find two other people to do it with me. So always thinking of costumes year round, not just Halloween.
That's fun. Now, who decides? Like, is Jamie ever going to veto any of these options, or is somebody? Are you the? Do you lean? You're the creative person. You did it with another couple. So how did you?
So we do it with another couple, and I would say it's kind of actually of all four of us. Hopefully, Jamie will listen to this. He probably has the least say. So, but I would say it's an ongoing conversation. I mean, this couple and us knew we were going to this fundraiser for months, and so we've been talking about it for months. What do we want to do? And we came up with some different options, and this is what we landed on. So it's a joint. It's joint. We just sort
That's
of
great.
talk it through together. Yeah, it's kind of fun planning. But it is if the Masters is bringing us to spring, I will tell you it is not spring here. It has been. It is. We planted our flowers. We are ready. But yesterday it was about 70 degrees. Today it was about 40. So I'm not sure what
Oh,
that weather is,
yeah.
what it's doing to me. But I had my big puffy coat on today, and I am ready for spring. But
Yeah.
it's the weather is not helping me out here. And this is just a busy time of year. I had 2 weekends. I was home right after Easter, which was nice. And now we are just kind of go, go, go straight through till graduations at the
Yeah.
end of May.
It
Gonna
is.
come
It is.
quickly.
It's a fun time of year. It's an exciting time of year. But I hear you. It's really waffled here. And I was in South Bend, and I'll talk a little bit more about being at Notre Dame. And each day dropped.
Hmm.
It was like nice, and then it got to about 44 degrees. So I too long for warmer days. But while I've been gone, my students have been watching the movie Rocky, which I bring up in the Easter season because it's really the story of resurrection. Haley, I forgot that he doesn't win at the end, right, of the movie. I totally forgot that. And it's the whole point of the story, like his deep desire is that he will go the distance and that he does win, right? I mean, you're
Right.
left
Right.
like it's this almost afterthought where they announce Apollo Creed as the winner, like in the background, but all he wants is Adrian, right? And there's their embrace and just that story. I wasn't sure how my students would like take all of it because it's from 1976 and there are a lot of themes. It's so rich in themes. There's tons of Christian symbolism and imagery. The opening scene is a boxing match, and above the ring is Christ, and then right, the Alpha, the Omega. There's a scene where Rocky's praying. Above his bed is a cross. Like the name Apollo Creed is a reference to the Apostles' Creed. I didn't know that. So tons of imagery, but also just we use this like iconic, just obviously the setting and the music, and they have seen different parts of the movie. So it's fun to string it all together. But then when you get to the conclusion, you're like, oh, I forgot. I mean, I did. So it's been a great story to unpack this Easter.
I bet. Okay, so I did too, and but it's probably been it could be 30 years since I've seen the movie.
Right?
I may have to
Yeah.
rewatch that because that's something I talk about even when I present all the time is, I won that first race back when I started competing again, but after that, I never won another race again. And so I always share I never won another race, but you'd be hard pressed to tell me that ultimately I didn't win. And what does that look like? And what does that mean? And I usually share something like, sometimes when you don't win, you just need a different perspective. And,
Yeah.
what is that definition of winning? So and it changed certainly for me. Absolutely. So I may need to watch Rocky again just through the lens of what I've experienced myself. And I would be super curious. So don't
Great.
forget between now and when we connect again, I'd love to hear what your students think about it as well.
Yeah. Well, it's perfect because one of the articles we read is called Essential For It identifies this idea called essential forces, and it's by a Jewish rabbi, but it's saying that sport is our shared religion. And why is it that we are so drawn to sport? And he identifies five essential forces. So parts of sport that kind of inherently are spiritual. So the first one is just like breath or energy, but the second one is music, and it's this idea of like the music that's within athletics naturally. But you can't watch Rocky and not, I mean, the music is so palpable. It is,
Yes.
I mean, it's so great, right? But then the conclusion is winning, comma, not the only thing.
Right.
And so, yes, like part of sports is just obviously that you're entering to win, but how we win in different ways.
Right.
So
Right.
I think, I think I think that's going to be really interesting to see where you and how you integrate it. And so
Absolutely.
hopefully they've made those connections because we read the article and presented on the article. We'll see.
But they are also teenagers, which is why we love
Mhm.
them.
Mm-hmm.
So my spiritual stew, I've been thinking about it for most of the weekend. And I have to share, last weekend I did something I've never done before, and actually attended something I had not attended before. And that is, I spoke at a confirmation retreat. And I was asked to do this about a month ago. And they originally asked for yesterday, but I was not able to do yesterday. And then amazingly, they were able to reschedule it a month out, and everybody showed up the week before, which kind of is amazing because I think that really speaks to the family's commitment to their children's faith. So confirmation here is done in the 8th grade year. I know it's different in different parishes and different parts of the country. So these are 8th graders, and it was about an hour south of me. So what we call South County here, a little more rural, different population than what people might consider kind of yuppie Annapolis. And so I had some time driving down there, which is so great for me because it takes me out of kind of this hurried life that I have where I'm getting ready and I'm getting dressed and I'm making sure everything's ready to go and I have everything. And then I can just spend this hour in the car just thinking, reflecting, kind of going through my mind what I'm going to share, what I want to make sure I share. I had a lot of time. I had about 3 hours to work with this group of young students, which is a very long time. But I had done a women's retreat many years ago, so I pulled some of my questions from that. And I'm finding with the last few talks that I've given that I really enjoy rethinking the format and how I share my story. I know I've mentioned before that I added videos to a presentation that I gave, the 2-night one last month. So it's really been fun to take the core of my story, which doesn't change, but to reimagine how to share it. So I spent the morning with this group of eighth graders, and they're not their confirmation sponsors, but kind of confirmation leaders. So there was probably 6 tables with about 8 students at each table, and then an adult leader kind of running the reflections and the discussions at the table. And the first thing I noted was, wow, what a commitment on these adults to take this time to spend all day with these 8th graders who I'll be honest, when I walked in and I kind of observed the activity they were doing before my time, they were not into it. And it was actually a really great, I thought, kind of confirmation game. It was survival. It was based on the TV show Survival. And so you had, duct tape and different pieces, and how do you incorporate the gifts of the Holy Spirit? What gifts, from the Holy Spirit would you want on an island during the survival game? And so I thought it was very clever and very well done. Again, I'm just coming in at the end, so hearing the pieces, and these not poor students, these 8th graders, I will just call them, I won't give them a description, just were really not engaged. And so I say poor in the sense that like they were just not getting it. I felt badly for them. And I really wanted them to just at least try and be engaged. And then it's interesting because I open most of my presentations when I'm speaking at a faith group with my own faith background story and how I wasn't raised Catholic, and how you've probably heard me say before, I was raised in a Christian mutt, where I started in the Presbyterian church and then the Methodist church, or the Episcopalian church and the Methodist church. But what I didn't have was a spiritual home, or this gift that a family can give their children, which was then very important for me to give my children that. And clearly so important for these parents to give it to these children, these 8th graders who were sitting at this confirmation retreat. And I really wanted them to get and understand what a gift that is, that their parents care about them enough to make this a priority on a Saturday in the spring, whether it felt like spring outside or not, when everyone's really busy. It really was a gift. And of course, then a gift to me as well, to share this with them, to really then make the connections with the students. It's one of the things I love about sharing my story, or the conversations I have during breaks, during reflections, where they really will share very meaningful things with me. I learned a long time ago that just because someone may not look like they're listening doesn't mean that they're not. That's true. I had to remember that, okay, perhaps maybe they were paying attention in this survival game too, and I just didn't see it. But just such a gift for me to continue to be able to connect in a way that I think and I feel and I hope makes a difference, especially in something as important as the faith life of our young people.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about that. And that's a real gift to them, and one honor to be asked as well. I don't know that young people, what they show, any of us, when we show up, and what are we expecting, and what are they arriving to this place with? And then just the willingness of anyone to participate in an icebreaker or a game, and how some people are just, I'm so impressed with some people who delight in them and are willing to engage. But I'm just struck by the fact that your story remains the same, but how you do it changes. And I think that's really interesting. And I think it'll be interesting, whether it's an 8th grader or with video or with Rocky. That's what scripture is, right? The word doesn't change, but how it relates to our lives does, and how we apply it and hear it as well.
And that's every time you and I speak, I keep thinking, okay, when can I go back and teach? And when can I take your curriculum and share it on the East Coast? But what you do and what I do are not dissimilar. And I think that's why you and I connect so well, is because you're in the classroom every day, and you are helping to develop the faith life of young people. And you're doing it through sport, which is exactly what I try to do in a different way, but really through the same vehicle. And I think that's It's just a really powerful tool that I do think resonates with young people.
It does. And story, but even just the fact that you call it your story, I think that's the starting point. I mean, the Gospels are the story of Jesus Christ.
Hmm.
And I hope we're not, myself included, as someone who does have bear that responsibility. I hope I'm not missing that. I was at Notre Dame in the last few days, and Father Mark Porman said Mass, and he said, he was joking because he teaches ethics and he loves teaching it. He said, most Americans think they're the center, they're the subject of their own story. Obviously, I mean, why wouldn't we think that? But he asked, he said, are we living in a story larger than our own? To kind of rethink the story. And anytime we read the gospel, we're looking at a story, but it's so much bigger, right? Like those stories are so much larger. It isn't just about Mary and Martha or Lazarus, it's about this God who became flesh at a point in time, and it still lives on with us today. So lots to think about.
Lots to think about. Yes.
Well, my piece of the spiritual stew is a quote from Dynamic Catholic, which I've referenced before, and I'll read the quote. It says, my prayer is that you will not just have an experience with Our Lady, but that you will have an encounter with her. An experience is a meeting or a moment when something happens, but an encounter is when something unexpectedly new happens. So that's by Lane Trufant Henry. Lane is the author of Ask Her. And I stopped when I received this quote. It's a daily quote I received because Pope Francis has talked a lot about the culture of encounter. And I don't ever want to diminish it, but it's like, it's just so simple that I don't know that people know what to do with it, because it's the principle that I have something good to give you and you have something good to give me. And when we meet each other, right, just so that we can receive your story or receive even like your smile, it's anything that the encounter may offer. And in this quote, it says something new happens. And being at Notre Dame, I was just reminded, the university named after Our Lady, the number of encounters that are made possible. And I think part of that is because it's such a walkable campus. And, the campus is so defined when you are on campus, you are part of campus, you're moving from point A to B. So I went to go see the Muffet McGraw statue, the Coach Muffet McGraw, the first female athletic statue, with a friend. We were walking to go see it. Then we were walking back, and I see this golf cart coming right at me. And who's in the passenger seat of the golf cart but Coach Freeman? And I so wanted to give him a high five, but I didn't also want it. They were going so fast, I didn't want to like crash or anything. So I said, Coach, go, go Irish. And then, so that was great. You just feel charged because he's somebody, I admire and appreciate. Later in the day, I walked to the grotto. I wasn't even sure if I should go because it was windy and cold. And I thought I better go now because if I don't go, I won't get there. And I'm walking back up the backside of the grotto. And who do I run into? Father Bob Dowd, the new president of the university. And we were able to have a conversation. He did daily mass in Farley Hall. So, and then lived in Berkeley for a little while he was studying at the Jesuit School of Theology. So we were able to have that encounter. Right. And I just think of so many people that we either see or have the chance to meet up with or run into unexpectedly. And it's made possible because of Our Lady. So just very grateful for the opportunity to be there, but also to see some really special people and to be energized by those encounters.
It is energizing. And I feel that way when I go to campus as well, or return from campus. And I wonder if that's what it is, if it's actually just the campus itself. No, of course it's not. It's probably who I encounter while I'm there. And that connection is really powerful. I had never thought of it in the way that you articulated it, but I think that's exactly what it is. Especially because there are so many people who are there at various times. And, we may have one or two people that we know are going to be there that we make plans to connect with. But I don't think either of us have ever been to campus where we haven't run into someone that we didn't know, someone that we run into unexpectedly. And there's such joy in that. And that is a prayer to wish for someone, is to have those unexpected encounters.
And not a given, because I was I don't know what I was saying to a friend, but she's like, well, I walked to the Muffet McGraw statue and I didn't run into Coach Freeman. So, and then later in the day, I was crossing the street and I said to myself, I think that's Drew Tranquil, who was played for the, was on the Notre Dame football team, now plays for the Kansas City Chiefs. And then sure enough, he was on campus for the blue and gold game. So not an encounter, but kind of a funny moment, the recognition. But, these encounters are like, whether it's Coach Freeman, there was like the real energy there. He saw me like get excited and he was pumped. It's a good day. It's the day before game day. But then with Father Bob, also like really able to catch up. It's probably been 16, 20 years.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow, that's
a gift.
Yeah, it is a gift. It really is. And I think for me, with my takeaways as I move into these, where I will have many encounters, just with various trips over the next several weeks, to find the joy in them and to really celebrate those unexpected encounters, but to just enjoy the moment. I had those 2 weekends where I was home and then I knew I was moving into just busy weekend after weekend after weekend. And sometimes that causes me, I don't know if it's anxiety, but just, I just feel like I have to gear up for them. And I want to make sure that I just enjoy them because there are a lot of really meaningful things that I will be doing and attending. And I don't want to miss out on something because I'm too concerned, being more of a Martha than a Mary, and being too concerned with what's going on and making sure everything's okay and making sure everyone's where they need to be and to just be present in the moment. So it will take some grace. It will take some prayer and reflection and some deep breaths. But that is my goal. That's my takeaway as I move, is to just slow down, pause, and enjoy these moments and the unexpected encounters that I'm sure will happen. Because I think if we are too rushed and hurried, those unexpected encounters pass us by.
They do. And you kind of have to savor them when they're special like that. And I also would say like share the encounter with somebody because like what it meant. Because, for example, one of the women I told, she said, oh, I knew Father Bob from when I lived in Kavanaugh. And it turns out he's going to stay in Kavanaugh Hall when he's president. And I thought that shouldn't be remarkable. That's totally the Notre Dame way. But of course, I thought it was awesome to hear. Here's the president of the university on the second floor of a women's dorm. It's very close to the main office and where he will need to be. And I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't shared kind of, my encounter. So,
and I wouldn't have known it had you not shared it with me. That is really neat.
Yeah. Now, one thing I want to ask about, when you're saying you're at home versus going away, do you agree with people who say, traveling is good because it does help us to appreciate the comfort of home? Is that something that you, or is it more like you have weekend responsibilities in addition to your job? Is that what I'm hearing?
It's probably more I have because I am working full time during the week and don't have as much time at home. The weekends are kind of my time to catch up on what I need to do at home. But they're all wonderful things that we're going away for, and certainly things to celebrate. And for the most part, for me, home is where my family is. So being in Cincinnati this coming weekend, I'm with one of my sons, so home is him. And then, he and I are actually going away to a really neat event that I will share in our next podcast. And that's with members of our Notre Dame family and celebrating a really wonderful family that we know as well. So that family, faith, and friendship coming together that weekend will be really meaningful. And then, of course, moving into graduation for my older son. All of that are really exciting events that I just want to make sure kind of the angst of being away from home isn't deterring from.
I understand. Yeah. I love that. Home is where family is. That is.
It is. I learned that when my parents moved out of my childhood home of 40 years. And I was the only home I'd ever known. It was the only house they'd ever owned. And I was 40 years old. They bought it 3 months before I was born. And I thought that would be really hard for me. And the first time I went to visit my parents, they were at a new place. It was in a different location, much smaller, felt differently. And I didn't skip a beat. because I realized I wasn't going home to a house, I was going home to my parents.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I think my kids are feeling that now. I know I've talked a lot about, we just downsized.
I was
But
thinking that.
yeah,
Yes.
and I think
Yeah.
they feel that now too. But
Yep.
so yes, my home is where my family is, and if I'm with them, then I am at home. It's not necessarily a physical location, but it's really where your heart is.
Love that. I think that's a great takeaway for everyone, just to consider that and to give thanks for our family and our homes.
And our blessings. And for those of us who were raised with the gift of faith or came into it later in life,
Yeah.
certainly taking the time to not push that aside and take it for granted, but to make sure that we open our hearts and our minds for those encounters that we experience along the way.
All right. You said that a spiritual home, something that you really longed for. So thank you for helping young people in a very special way, right?
You too.
Consider about the home in which they've been raised. So thank you.
Great. I look forward to connecting again in a couple weeks.
You got it. We'll be here.